This is A to Z with Mark Zinno, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, and it starts now.
Good afternoon. Welcome to A to Z here on Locked On Sports Atlanta, where today I tell you, first I wasn't surprised, then I was. Welcome in. We are live here on this Wednesday, getting you set for a football weekend in college. We are getting ever so close to week one. We'll get into Georgia and Oregon coming up as well. Some interesting salary cap positionings and position spending that I think are of note going forward. We'll discuss that coming up on the show, but we need to start today with the Atlanta Falcons and the Atlanta Braves. First, the Falcons, the part that I wasn't surprised at when they cut down to their 53-man roster and now put together this team that at least is going to go out there in week one and go try and win as many football games as they feasibly can, right? And there weren't really too many, again, surprises. Like, I wasn't surprised at the roster the way it went down. I think everything kind of settled in the way most of us thought it would. I guess some people were a little bit surprised that Jared Bernhardt, the former lacrosse player, made the team. And again, I was personally surprised that Auden Tate isn't here. That to me was a little bit shocking, given what they wanted to do. I guess they felt like they had enough size with Kyle Pitts, with Drake London, with Brian Edwards, that they didn't necessarily need another big guy out on the field. So I don't think anything was really shocking about the roster and what went down. I guess on the defensive side, linebacker Nick Kwiatkowski, is that how you say it? Kwiatkowski? You know what we're talking about. Not going to work here anymore. He was somebody else I thought many folks thought would make the roster, but didn't. And this was a guy who was supposed to be here to supplant linebacker depth and, give him some, I guess, backup for Deion Jones. And maybe the only reason he was brought here was because they thought Deion Jones wasn't going to be an option for the 53-man roster when it was all said and done. And guess what? Deion Jones is an option. He is on the team. We've talked about this earlier this week and pretty much for the last couple of weeks. I don't see a reason to give him a roster spot, but they did. And this is where this team is right now. So they're going to pick these 53 guys. And guess what? Folks, the roster is going to change. It's going to constantly be fluid throughout the entire year. And this is a situation where there's next to no chance any NFL roster looks exactly like it did at the very start of the season as it does at the end. But that said, I think this is one that could have a lot more turnover as Terry Fontenot has to continually find guys for this team to fill in holes in areas where the talent isn't as good as others. So I think that's something that's going to consistently be a theme throughout the rest of the year. One other note, even though they both made the roster as far as Matt Hennessy and Drew Dalman is concerned, Arthur Smith says that he hasn't chosen a starter yet. I kind of find that laughable. Yes, you have. You know exactly who's going to be your starter and who's not. He's not going to tell the media that. He's not going to tip his hand in that scenario, which I get and I'm fine with. I don't think there's an issue with holding that information to the vest a little bit longer. But, I'd be shocked if he truly doesn't know who his starter is at this point in time. Like, to me, it's like, come on. You have to have your one set. You want to have some arguments about, who is second best and who is third best and everything else. I suppose you can and still look at some more things in camp, but you know who your ones are. You got 10 days before you play your first game. You know who your ones are. Well, 11, sorry. So I'm pretty confident that Arthur Smith knows who the center is going to be. When will we know? Who knows? Before we get to the Atlanta Braves, I want to remind you guys to check out BetOnline.net. It's the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. Find your favorite sports and events at the number one source for odds, lines, and games. If you're looking for odds on the Falcons and the New Orleans Saints Week 1, Falcons getting 4.5. Very interesting trend on Week 1 divisional games. Take the Falcons, folks. That's not a fanboy thing. You know me. Find reviews and news of every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NHL, NBA, combat sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all your sports wagering information. From live in-game betting, scores, podcasts, they've got you covered. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening today. BetOnline, where the game starts. Okay. The game started last night for the Braves after a small little rain spat, and they end up losing 3-2. And it is always surprising to see Max Fried beaten. It's more surprising to see Max Fried outdueled. It's most surprising to see it be by Jose Urena and the Colorado Rockies. So it was not a good night offensively for the Braves. Could not get that big hit, and they end up losing a game 3-2 to a team that they sort of should have really beaten, and they got the exact help and the exact favor they needed from the Dodgers, who beat the Mets 4-3. And lo and behold, as I sat here leading up to this series for the last 2 weeks, telling you, well, this is the spot where the Braves can go beat up the Rockies and the Dodgers can take care of the Mets. And, well, the Dodgers did their part. The Braves did not. Braves pitching gave up 11 hits last night. That was bad. That felt bad. There was a lot of hits going around. Pretty characteristically uncommon for this Braves team. But still, they end up not being able to take advantage, and they lose 3-2. In the bigger picture, again, we're still hearing this thing I talked about earlier in the week. Ronald Acuna sat out again with his knee. They're saying it's getting better, at least according to Gabriel Burns of the AJC, as he wrote it up. It's getting better. It's getting better. Manager Brian Snitker says he's getting better. Get better fast, Ronald, please, for all of us. I mean, at this point in time, I don't know how comfortable I feel with this situation developing. We talked to Grant McCauley yesterday, our Braves postcast from the Diamond podcast. I mean, yeah, he's going to be okay, but I don't know how you go from pretty intense pain to just getting better. I mean, that doesn't sound like somebody who's ready to play every day at this point in time in the middle of a stretch run to try and win the division. This could be problematic for this team. Now, in the big picture, about last night, losing to the Rockies is not the worst thing in the world. It happens. I mean, the Braves have been very good against teams above 500. In fact, I think they were going into last night 29 games, not 28 games, over 500 against teams with losing records. So that speaks to how good they've been. You drop one here or there, it happens. It's just timing is inopportune. Again, as you're in the middle of the stretch run, the postseason run, and you do it against a team that you shouldn't. And again, you get the timing of the Mets taking care of business, or the Dodgers taking care of business over the Mets. And lo and behold, it stings a little bit extra. Braves have now lost 3 in a row. Probably feels like they need to get right tonight. And that's, I guess, a good pun because Kyle Wright is starting tonight, and he's the guy that needs to get them right sooner rather than later. They dropped 2 to the Rockies, and it's going to feel like panic mode, especially if the Mets end up beating the Dodgers. You're getting the exact opposite effect of what you wanted out of this series. And that, is a spot, again, where you need to be within striking distance. The best chance you're going to have after this series is beating the Mets straight up. But that means you only have 6 games left in the season when they start that series. So you're going to be asking for help unless you're a game out. So anyway, this is where the Braves are. Again, I'm not panicking. They're going to be fine. But it was one of those losses last night that stings a little bit extra, that makes it really, really difficult to turn the page, given the fact that the Mets lost and you had a real opportunity against a team and a starter that, frankly, you should have beaten. All right, coming up next, there are some interesting ways to look at the salary cap and positional spending. We'll see where the Falcons fall in, comparatively speaking, to other teams that are at least poised to make the postseason. That's coming up next right here on A to Z on Locked On Sports Atlanta, free on YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast, search Locked On Sports Atlanta.